Thank you very much, Program Director, and good morning to all the delegates. And I would like to firstly recognize some of the key speakers that are present today, and also recognize the Minister in her absence, and also acknowledge the President of FTTX, of Council Africa, Dr. Andile Ngaba, the CEO of FTTH, Ms. Clark, and also the CEO who has just spoken of Tower Exchange, Mr. Kiron, and also the country manager of the United States Trade and Development Agency, Ms. Agres or Agres, the headline sponsor who has made all of this possible, Mr. Mulder, and all the industry leadership that is present here, dignitaries and colleagues. I think from my side, it's not to repeat what the Minister has already eloquently explained, that at the center of all what we do is to put citizenry at that center, to make sure that there is solutions that we all work towards to make life simpler, better, and efficient. And there can be no better opportunity for us as leaders at a local level to make sure that we seize the moment and look at opportunities that will arise out of the 4IR that is emerging very fast before us. And the President has outlined that we may be having a number of disadvantages, but what will be important is what do we do out of those. I was reading a report from the World Economic Forum, and they estimate in their research, but by 2050, there will be about 9.8 billion people in the world. And of these people, 70% of them are projected to be resident within urban areas in our cities. And when you look at opportunities that are there for us to improve the way we do things as cities, there can be no greater opportunities, because throughout the world, and if you look at South Africa in particular, every square inch of the Republic is demarcated to be under a municipal area. So everyone, 58.7 million South African, are resident in municipal areas. So any of these opportunities that we are seeing unfolding before us and packaged as new opportunities to transition, all of those can only be realized at our space. And when we look at this, we see greater opportunities for us to advance both socio-economic development, but also do services much better and much more efficient as cities. So one of the thinking that we acted on as SALGA was to bring a conversation of all city leaders in 2016 to try and understand this emerging phenomena before us and make sense of how do we then start developing an enabling framework that will guide cities to undertake their work in such a way that firstly, we develop a blueprint framework around ensuring that we are in a position to better advise municipalities around the infrastructure that is required, how to sustainably roll out broadband, but also make sure that we are able to enhance service delivery obligations that we have. The second part was the development of a smart city framework to lay the foundation as well as a roadmap, so that every city is in a position to exploit these opportunities in a much more structured way. So one of those areas for us is to seek partnership with yourselves on how to realize some of the objectives that are outlined both in the blueprint as well as the smart city framework that we have adopted as the family of cities in South Africa. And one of those areas in the main, firstly, is to make sure that we have better opportunities and a clearer policy framework around enabling data, voice and video communication, as well as ensuring that the municipal staff that we have in South Africa, 378,000 as they are able to work much more effectively, whether they are people who are at the frontline service, who are also technicians in our water main system, electricity. How do we empower them? Secondly, to achieve greater efficiency and effectiveness in managing water, electricity, traffic, and other service infrastructure via single integrated digital platform infrastructure. How do we achieve that? The third area is ensuring contribution to increasing broadband penetration levels within underserved areas, the points that the minister was eloquently presenting before us. Because we have areas in our country where it's really, really difficult. So out of 257 municipalities, almost more than 50% are really in the deep rural areas. And how do we make sure, working collaboratively with yourself, you can have opportunity through our enabling framework to make sure that we can advance the opportunities for maximizing access and thereby increase opportunities for servicing citizens much more better and appreciate the connectivity of infrastructure to drive knowledge economy. We also look at the area around finding new innovative ways of ensuring that municipalities move with the times in growing their revenue mix and base. And we have identified critical success areas which we think from a partnership point of view with yourselves as industry stakeholders, we can model and look at a myriad of options that can make sure that at least we emerge with opportunities that would help us to have the least cost effective on a shared basis in such a way that all of us, we emerge with opportunities of success. And one of those options is around adopting technological approaches that will ensure rapid deployment and lowered capex outlay around rolling out. How do we make sure that public-private partnership, at the center of them, there's a view for revenue sharing and co-ownership of broadband infrastructure or quid pro quo models? Thirdly, utilization of broadband to manage utilities infrastructure in a more efficient manner from a single integrated perspective. But also for us to use the assets and infrastructure that we have as cities as a strategic enabler for the deployment of communication services. At the center of that is partnering to attack the digital divide that is very prevalent in many of our areas. So as owners of assets that are very critical for deployment of broadband, assets like road reserves, the high sites. In addition, we also have street furniture, street poles, the lights that my immediate previous speaker has indicated, which could be used for traffic management and many other areas, the weather sensors and so on. This infrastructure has historically played a crucial role, and it will continue to do so as we prepare to lead into this future that we all desire. So in our view, a least cost model to be considered for municipalities has a number of characteristics that we think from a conversation we will be able to advance in our conversation with yourselves as stakeholders. Firstly, looking at financial sustainability and viability, the technology choices that we must have as municipalities. The second issue is around fiber, which is deployed using aerial suspension to make sure that it is cheaper and that most of electricity infrastructure is already available in any way in most of our areas. The usage of network topology to ensure greater redundancy and also leveraging skills. Also looking at business models around public-private partnership in the ownership model. So we believe that some of these areas will be points of conversations that we do not hold monopoly as local government, but we place before you our infrastructure that I'm very much aware that there's a lot of painstaking process that we have to go through, negotiating way leaves and many other areas. And also the fact that you have to go through individual municipalities. So some of these opportunities would require us to go beyond artificial boundaries that are there legislatively to make sure that we can harness the collective strengths that we have and also utilize legislation, for instance, in our own case, the Municipal Systems Act, which is a legislation that allows us to put systems for functioning municipalities. They make provisions for multi-jurisdictional service offerings where we can allow outlay of infrastructure across these areas. But for us to go and do that individually, we go to each city, sign agreements individually to have monopoly over that, it will not be helpful for all of us. So we would want to have a conversation that is multi-encompassing, but ensure that all your indicated areas of business and commercial opportunities are recognized, but we deploy a conversation mechanism that allows us to have a cross-section of partners, and the entry point for us will be FTTH, to make sure that FTTH can be able to help us to navigate some of the complexities we have, guide us better to make sure that we seize the moment. So from a partnership point of view, we are available to work with you, and we believe that some of these successes are likely to be realized much more faster when we embrace and work collaboratively and reinforce each other's strategic objectives. On that note, I wish you very well for the deliberations today and wish you a success. Thank you.